Most people at 27 were still trying to figure life out. Sophia Bennett already owned part of the city. Hotels, luxury apartments, construction companies, restaurants, fashion investments. Business magazines constantly featured her on their covers, with titles like The Young Billionaire Queen, the woman building an empire, the most powerful CEO under 30. People admired her success, but nobody saw the exhaustion hiding behind her perfectly polished appearance. Sophia walked toward her home gym wearing black leggings and a fitted sports top. She spent exactly 45 minutes exercising before showering quickly and dressing in one of her signature elegant business suits. Everything about her life was structured, precise, controlled, even her emotions. By 6:30 a.m., she sat alone at her long dining table eating breakfast while reviewing documents on her tablet. Her chef carefully placed coffee beside her. "You barely touched dinner last night, ma'am," he said carefully. "I was busy. You should rest more." Sophia gave a polite smile without looking up. "I'll rest when the Abuja Heights project is complete." The chef sighed softly. Everyone around Sophia worried about her, but nobody could stop her. At 7:15 a.m., her driver prepared the car outside the penthouse tower, but Sophia stopped him. "I'll drive myself today. Ma'am, I need quiet." The driver nodded respectfully. Minutes later, her sleek black luxury car glided through the city streets while soft instrumental music played quietly inside. Sophia's phone began ringing before she even reached her office. "Good morning, Miss Bennett," her assistant said nervously through the speaker. "The investors moved the meeting to 9. Fine. And the media team needs your approval for the Dubai expansion announcement. Send it to my email. The construction manager for the Northern Bridge project also." Sophia closed her eyes briefly. "One problem at a time, Clara." "Yes, ma'am." The call ended. Sophia exhaled slowly and tightened her grip on the steering wheel. This was her life every single day. Pressure, decisions, responsibilities, and somehow she had convinced herself she liked it that way. When Sophia arrived at Bennett Holdings headquarters, employees instantly straightened. The building itself screamed power and wealth. A massive glass skyscraper standing proudly among the city's most expensive properties. As soon as Sophia entered the lobby, greetings echoed everywhere. "Good morning, Miss Bennett." "Morning, ma'am." "Good morning." Sophia responded politely but briefly as she walked quickly toward the private elevator reserved exclusively for executives. At the top floor, her best friend Vanessa was already waiting inside her office, holding 2 cups of coffee. Vanessa Johnson had been Sophia's closest friend since university days. Unlike everyone else, Vanessa wasn't intimidated by Sophia's wealth or status. She treated her normally, sometimes annoyingly normally. "You're late," Vanessa teased. Sophia glanced at the clock. "It's 7:58. "Exactly. You're usually here." "At 7:45. Sophia smirked slightly and placed her bag down. "Should I apologize to the nation?" "Yes," Vanessa replied. Dramatically. The stock market almost collapsed from panic. Sophia laughed softly despite herself. Vanessa handed her coffee and studied her carefully. "You slept in the office again, didn't you?" "No, you're lying." Sophia avoided eye contact. Vanessa folded her arms. "Sophia, I only stayed until midnight." Vanessa stared at her in disbelief. "That's your definition of normal." "There was work. There's always work." Sophia sat behind her desk while turning on her laptop. "Well, unlike you, some of us are trying to build empires." Vanessa rolled her eyes. "And unlike you, some of us occasionally touch grass and interact with human beings." Sophia chuckled quietly. Vanessa suddenly became serious. When last did you go on a date? Sophia paused mid-typing. That bad? Huh, Vanessa sighed. I don't have time for dating. That's not what I asked. Sophia leaned back in her chair. Why are you interrogating me this early? Because you're 27 years old and married to your company. Sophia smirked faintly. The company is less stressful than relationships. Vanessa's expression softened. You still think about Michael, don't you? The room became quiet instantly. Sophia's fingers stopped moving. Michael. Even hearing his name still affected her. Years ago, before the billions, before the fame, before Bennett Holdings became an empire, there had been Michael Anderson, her first love. Back then, Sophia had simply been an ambitious university student with oversized dreams and little money. Michael had loved her during the years nobody knew her name. They studied together, built dreams together, spent nights planning impossible futures together. Sophia remembered sitting beside him under campus trees while he promised her, "One day, you're going to become extraordinary," and she had believed him. But success changed everything. After graduation, Michael moved abroad to pursue his technology career, while Sophia stayed behind to grow her father's struggling company after his sudden death. Distance slowly destroyed them. Calls became shorter, messages became fewer. Arguments became more frequent until eventually silence. Sophia buried herself completely in work after that heartbreak. It was easier, safer. Vanessa sat across from her gently. You can't punish every future relationship because one ended badly. Sophia stared quietly at her computer screen. I'm not punishing anyone. You're hiding. No, Sophia replied calmly. I'm focused. Vanessa sighed heavily. You know what your problem is? Sophia raised an eyebrow. You've spent so long trying to become powerful that you forgot how to be happy. Those words hit harder than Sophia expected. Before she could respond, her office phone rang. Saved by work. Sophia answered immediately. Yes. Ma'am, the investors have arrived. Sophia stood smoothly. Send them into conference hall. Vanessa watched her switch instantly into CEO mode. Cold, sharp, untouchable. Sometimes Vanessa wondered if Sophia even remembered how to relax anymore. For the next several hours, Sophia dominated meeting after meeting with ruthless efficiency. She negotiated contracts worth millions without blinking, corrected executives twice. Her age-approved international expansions while barely pausing for lunch. Everyone admired her brilliance, but by evening exhaustion weighed heavily behind her eyes. Around 6:00 p.m., Vanessa entered her office again, carrying takeout food. You skipped lunch, Vanessa said. I forgot. That's not normal. Sophia rubbed her temples tiredly. The Abuja Heights inspection is tomorrow morning. So the engineers made mistakes in the revised reports. Vanessa sat down across from her. Sophia, do you know what normal rich people do? What? They vacation on yachts. Sophia snorted softly. I hate yachts. They date attractive men. I hate attractive men. Vanessa laughed loudly. No, seriously. You need a life outside this office. Sophia closed another file. My company needs me. And who takes care of Sophia? The question lingered painfully in the air. Sophia looked away first. I'm fine. Vanessa gave her a long look, but she knew better than to push too hard. The next morning, Sophia woke even earlier than usual because she planned to personally inspect a new construction project outside the city. The Abuja Heights project was one of her biggest investments yet, a luxury residential development expected to generate billions. Sophia trusted very few people with important projects, which meant she usually handled things herself. After dressing in a cream-colored fitted suit and elegant heels, she grabbed her car keys. Her housekeeper looked surprised. "You're driving yourself again, ma'am." "Yes. At least eat breakfast first. I'll grab something later." The housekeeper frowned worriedly as Sophia hurried out. Rain clouds gathered heavily overhead as she drove through the outskirts of the city. Sophia enjoyed driving alone sometimes. It was one of the rare moments nobody demanded anything from her. No meetings and no investors, and no expectations, just silence. Soft rain began falling against the windshield. Sophia turned on the wipers and continued driving while mentally reviewing construction budgets. Then suddenly the car jerked violently. Sophia frowned. "What?" A warning light flashed across the dashboard. Then smoke rose faintly from beneath the hood. "Oh, come on." The engine died completely. The luxury car rolled to a stop beside a lonely stretch of road surrounded by open land and scattered trees. Sophia stared ahead in disbelief. This cannot be happening. She tried restarting the engine. Nothing again. Still nothing. Frustration rose immediately. She grabbed her phone to call for assistance. No signal. Perfect. Sophia leaned back against the seat with annoyance. Rain intensified outside. For several seconds, she simply sat there irritated beyond belief. Then finally, she stepped out carefully into the rain. Cold wind brushed against her skin instantly. Her expensive heels sank slightly into wet ground. As she walked toward the hood and opened it, smoke drifted upward. Sophia stared at the engine like it had personally offended her. "I hate everything." Several cars sped past without stopping. Sophia crossed her arms tightly. Normally, people recognized her immediately. Today, nobody even slowed down. Rain dampened her hair slightly as she stood there alone beside her useless luxury car. Then, in the distance, headlights approached slowly. An old black pickup truck pulled over beside her vehicle. Sophia became cautious instantly. The driver stepped out. He was tall, broad-shouldered, and dressed simply in faded jeans and a dark shirt with slight oil stains near the sleeves. Not handsome in an overly polished way, but undeniably attractive. He glanced at the smoking engine before looking at her. "Look serious," he said calmly. Sophia folded her arms carefully. "I noticed." The man smiled slightly. "Need help?" Sophia hesitated. Normally, she avoided strangers completely, but something about him felt safe. "I'm not sure you can fix this." His smile widened faintly. "Try me." Without waiting for permission, he moved closer to inspect the engine. Sophia watched carefully as he checked several components confidently. "You know cars?" she asked. "A little." "A little," he chuckled softly. "Okay, a lot." Rain drizzled steadily around them while he worked calmly beneath the hood. Sophia found herself studying him curiously. Unlike most men around her, he didn't seem nervous or eager to impress her. He simply focused on the car. "What's wrong with it?" she finally asked. "Damaged ignition wire," he replied. "You figured that out already." He looked up briefly with a grin. "I told you I know cars." Using tools from his truck, he carefully repaired the damaged section temporarily. A few minutes later, he nodded. "Try starting it now." Sophia slid back into the driver's seat and pressed the ignition. The engine roared back to life immediately. Her eyes widened slightly. "You fixed it." "Temporary fix," he corrected while shutting the hood. "You should replace the wire properly later." Sophia stepped out again, smiling despite herself. "Well, thank you. You're welcome." For a brief moment, they simply stood there in the rain. Then Sophia realized something strange. She didn't want the conversation to end. "I'm Sophia," she said finally. The man looked at her for a second before answering. Daniel, there was something warm about his voice, something genuine, and for reasons Sophia couldn't explain, her heartbeat suddenly felt different. Sophia drove away from the lonely roadside with her hands gripping the steering wheel tighter than usual. Rain continued falling softly against the windshield, while Daniel's face lingered stubbornly in her mind. It annoyed her, not because he had done anything wrong, but because almost nobody managed to occupy her thoughts anymore, especially not a stranger. Sophia had spent years training herself to focus only on business. Emotions complicated things. Attachments distracted people. Love made intelligent people foolish. At least, that was what she constantly told herself. Yet somehow during those few minutes beside a broken-down car, Daniel had made her laugh more genuinely than she had laughed in weeks. She glanced briefly at the business card holder resting near the dashboard. She had given him her personal card, not the public company one. Why? Sophia frowned slightly at herself. This is ridiculous. Still, by the time Sophia arrived at the Abuja Heights construction site, several managers were already waiting nervously beneath large umbrellas. The moment they saw her car, everyone straightened immediately. "Good morning, Miss Bennett." Sophia stepped out gracefully despite the muddy ground. "Morning." Her sharp eyes immediately scanned the massive construction project surrounding them. Half-finished luxury towers stretched toward the cloudy sky while workers hurried across the wet site carrying materials. One mistake, one delay, one wrong calculation, and millions could disappear instantly. Sophia switched effortlessly back into business mode. "Show me the revised structural reports." The project manager quickly handed over documents. Sophia studied them while walking through the site. Within minutes, she noticed inconsistencies. "These numbers are wrong." The manager swallowed nervously. "Ma'am, the concrete allocation estimates don't match the foundation measurements." Silence. Sophia stopped walking and looked directly at him. "Did anyone actually verify these calculations before sending them to me?" Nobody answered. Her expression hardened immediately. "This is a billionaire project, not a classroom assignment." The workers nearby became tense. Sophia rarely raised her voice, but when disappointed, she became terrifyingly calm. "Fix it," she said coldly. "Today, yes, ma'am." For the next several hours, Sophia inspected every section personally. Yet strangely, between conversations and reports, her mind kept drifting back to Daniel. The way he smiled, the calm confidence in his voice, the simplicity about him felt refreshing. Most men she met were either intimidated by her success or obsessed with her wealth. Daniel had treated her like an ordinary woman stranded beside the road. Nothing more, nothing less. By afternoon, Sophia finally returned to Bennett Holdings headquarters, exhausted. As she entered her office, Vanessa immediately noticed something unusual. "You look distracted." "I'm tired." Vanessa narrowed her eyes suspiciously. "No, this is different." Sophia placed her handbag down carefully. "There's no difference." Vanessa gasped dramatically. "Oh my God, what? You met someone?" Sophia almost choked on her water. "What are you talking about?" Vanessa pointed accusingly. "That face." "What face?" "The face you make when you're pretending not to think about someone." Sophia rolled her eyes and walked toward her desk. "You're imagining things." "MHM." Vanessa leaned forward excitedly. "Who is he?" "There is no he, so there is a he." Sophia sighed deeply. "My car broke down yesterday, and a man helped fix it." Vanessa's eyes widened immediately. "A handsome man." Sophia ignored the question. "He seemed decent." Vanessa nearly screamed. Sophia Bennett just called a man decent. This is history. Sophia laughed softly despite herself. Vanessa sat across from her dramatically. "Tell me everything." There's nothing to tell. What's his name? Sophia hesitated briefly. Daniel. Oh, Daniel, Vanessa teased. Sophia shook her head. He was just helping. Did he flirt? No, that's even worse. Sophia frowned. How is that worse? Because now you're interested. Before Sophia could respond, her office intercom buzzed. Miss Bennett, her secretary, Clara, said carefully. There's someone here asking to see you. Sophia picked up a file absent-mindedly. Who? He says his name is Daniel. Sophia froze instantly. Vanessa's mouth dropped open dramatically. Oh, this is getting good. Sophia shot her a warning look before pressing the intercom button again. Send him in. A few seconds later, the office door opened slowly. Daniel stepped inside, looking slightly uncomfortable. Unlike the polished businessmen usually surrounding Sophia, Daniel looked simple and real. He wore a neatly ironed navy blue shirt tucked into dark trousers that were clearly not expensive but carefully maintained. His shoes looked slightly worn and his posture carried uncertainty, but his eyes remained steady. Sophia noticed immediately that he looked completely out of place inside her luxurious executive office. Floor-tolling windows overlooked the city skyline. Modern art decorated the walls. Crystal lights reflected across polished marble floors. Daniel glanced around briefly before focusing back on her. You actually came, Sophia said before she could stop herself. Daniel smiled faintly. You gave me your card. Vanessa watched the entire interaction silently with growing amusement. Sophia quickly recovered her composure. Sit down. Daniel sat carefully while Vanessa stood up. Well, Vanessa announced dramatically. I suddenly remembered I have work to do. Sophia narrowed her eyes. Vanessa ignored her completely before extending her hand toward Daniel. I'm Vanessa, Sophia's best friend. Daniel shook her hand politely. Daniel. Vanessa smirked knowingly at Sophia before leaving the office. The moment the door closed, silence settled briefly. Daniel cleared his throat awkwardly. I hope I'm not disturbing you. Sophia leaned back calmly. You're not, though, honestly. She wasn't sure why she felt nervous all of a sudden. That rarely happened. Daniel glanced down at the business card in his hands. I almost didn't come. Sophia raised an eyebrow. Why? He laughed quietly. Because people like me don't usually walk into buildings like this. Sophia studied him carefully. What do you mean, people like you? Daniel hesitated. People without connections. Something about the honesty in his voice caught her attention immediately. Most people tried desperately to impress her. Daniel simply spoke truthfully. Sophia folded her hands neatly on the desk. So why did you come? Daniel inhaled slowly before answering. I need a job direct at Simple Enoaim. Sophia appreciated that. You're a mechanic, she asked. Daniel smiled slightly. That's what life forced me into. Sophia frowned faintly. What does that mean? Daniel leaned back slightly. I studied mechanical engineering. Sophia blinked once. You have an engineering degree? Yes. Then, why are you repairing cars by the roadside? Daniel's expression changed subtly. A quiet sadness entered his eyes. Because after graduation, nothing worked out. Sophia listened silently. I applied everywhere, Daniel continued. Big companies, small companies, factories, construction firms, and no connections, he said simply. No wealthy parents, no influence. His smile became bitter. Eventually, the rejection emails stop hurting. You just get used to disappointment. For reasons she couldn't explain, Sophia suddenly felt uncomfortable. Not because of Daniel, because she knew he was right. The business world often favored privilege over talent. Sophia herself had inherited opportunity even if she worked hard to grow it, But Daniel, he sounded like someone life kept shutting doors against. Sophia studied him more carefully now. You graduated with good grades. First class. Her eyebrows rose. Slightly. Seriously, Daniel nodded once. I can bring my documents if you want. Sophia noticed no arrogance in him, only quiet dignity. That intrigued her. Most desperate job seekers either begged excessively or exaggerated their abilities. Daniel did neither. Instead, he sat calmly like a man who had simply become tired of struggling. Sophia found herself asking softly, "Do you still believe things can change for you?" Daniel looked directly into her eyes. Yes. The confidence in that single word surprised her. Sophia slowly stood from her chair. Come have lunch with me. Daniel blinked in confusion. What? You heard me. He looked genuinely shocked. At a restaurant. Sophia almost smiled. No, Daniel. At a football stadium. He laughed unexpectedly. The sound warmed the room instantly. Sophia realized something dangerous. Then she liked hearing him laugh. Daniel stood slowly. You don't have to do this. I know. Then. Why are you? Sophia paused briefly before answering honestly. Because I want to. For a moment neither of them spoke. Something invisible shifted quietly between them. Not love, not yet, but curiosity, connection, the beginning of something neither fully understood. As they walked together toward the private elevator, employees across the executive floor stared openly. Their billionaire CEO almost never left work during lunch hours, and she definitely never left with men. Vanessa peeked from her office and nearly burst into laughter seeing Sophia walking beside Daniel. Sophia noticed her immediately. Don't start, Sophia warned. Vanessa grinned wickedly. Oh, I'm absolutely starting later. Daniel looked confused. Sophia sighed tiredly. You'll get used to her. The elevator doors closed slowly, and for the first time in years, Sophia found herself genuinely looking forward to spending time with someone. The private elevator doors opened into the underground parking garage of Bennett Holdings. Sophia walked confidently toward her black luxury car, while Daniel followed beside her quietly, still looking slightly overwhelmed by everything around him. Employees passing nearby stared openly. Some whispered, others pretended not to notice. After all, seeing Sophia Bennett leave work in the middle of the afternoon with a man nobody recognized was practically headline-worthy. Daniel noticed the stares immediately. You know everyone's watching us, right? Sophia unlocked the car calmly. They're always watching me. Daniel studied her expression carefully. You say that like you're tired of it. Sophia paused briefly before opening the driver's door. I am. Daniel got into the passenger seat while Sophia started the engine smoothly. For a moment, silence settled between them as the car pulled out into traffic. Daniel glanced around the luxurious interior carefully. You really built all this? He asked quietly. Sophia kept her eyes on the road. My father started the company, but you expanded it. She shrugged lightly. I worked hard. Daniel smiled faintly. That sounds like an understatement. Sophia almost smiled back. Most people praised her wealth constantly, but Daniel sounded genuinely curious instead of impressed. Felt refreshing. A few minutes later, they arrived at one of the city's most expensive restaurants. The moment the manager saw Sophia enter, his face brightened instantly. Miss Bennett, welcome back. Sophia nodded politely. A private table, please. Of course. Daniel looked visibly uncomfortable as they followed the waiter through the elegant restaurant filled with wealthy guests dressed in designer clothing. Soft piano music floated through the air while crystal chandeliers reflected warm golden light across polished floors. Daniel quietly leaned closer to Sophia. I definitely don't belong here. Sophia glanced at him. Why? He laughed softly. Because one meal here probably costs more than my monthly rent. Sophia surprised herself by laughing openly. The sound caught Daniel off guard completely. For a second he simply stared at her. Sophia noticed immediately. What? Nothing. You're staring. Daniel smiled slightly. You smiled differently outside the office. Sophia looked away unexpectedly flustered. That reaction annoyed her. She wasn't supposed to get nervous around men anymore. The waiter pulled out Sophia's chair, respectfully before handing the menus. Daniel barely glanced at his. Sophia noticed. You don't like the options. Daniel smiled awkwardly. I honestly don't know what half these names mean. That made Sophia laugh again. Relax, Daniel. It's just food for rich people, maybe. Sophia shook her head amusedly before ordering for both of them. After the waiter left, silence settled briefly between them again. But unlike awkward silence, this felt comfortable. Sophia leaned back slightly. So, tell me something. Daniel looked up. What? How does someone with a first-class engineering degree end up fixing cars on the roadside? Daniel's expression changed immediately. The warmth in his face faded into something quieter, something heavier. For a moment, Sophia worried she had asked too much, but then Daniel exhaled slowly. It's a long story. I'm listening. He stared briefly through the large glass windows overlooking the city before speaking again. I grew up in Kaduna with my mother. Sophia listened carefully. My father died when I was 11. I'm sorry. Daniel nodded faintly. My mother became everything after that. She sold vegetables in the market just to keep me in school. Sophia felt something tighten slightly inside her chest. Daniel continued quietly. She believed education would save us. There was no self-pity in his voice, only honesty. She used to wake up at 4:00 every morning to prepare food before going to the market. Some nights she came home so exhausted she couldn't even eat. Sophia remembered her own father suddenly. The long nights, the sacrifices, the pressure of survival. Daniel smiled, faintly at the memory. But she never complained. Never once. What about university? Daniel's eyes softened slightly. I got a scholarship. Sophia looked impressed. You must have been brilliant. He shrugged modestly. I studied hard because failure wasn't an option. The waiter returned briefly with drinks before leaving again. Daniel waited until they were alone before continuing. University was honestly the best period of my life. Sophia rested, her chin lightly against her hand while listening. I thought everything would change after graduation, Daniel admitted quietly. I really believed life would finally become easier, but it didn't. Daniel laughed bitterly. No. His fingers tightened slightly around the glass in front of him. Everywhere I applied wanted experience. Sophia frowned slightly. That's common, unfortunately. How do you get experience if nobody hires you first? She had no answer for that. Daniel continued. At first I stayed hopeful. I wore my best clothes to interviews, printed fresh copies of my CV, practiced answers. His smile faded. Then the rejection emails started. Sophia noticed the quiet pain hidden beneath his calmness. Some companies never even responded, he said softly. Others promised to call back and disappeared. And your mother? Daniel looked down briefly. She got sick. Sophia's expression softened. Immediately. What happened? Stress mostly. Years of overworking finally caught up with her. Daniel paused as food arrived at the table. Neither of them touched it immediately. She needed medication. He continued after the waiter left again. Rent needed to be paid. Bills kept piling up. Sophia watched him carefully. So you started fixing cars. Daniel nodded once. A friend taught me basic repairs during university holidays. Eventually, I started working at roadside mechanic shops. He smiled faintly. Turns out I was good with engines. Sophia finally spoke quietly. You deserved better. Daniel looked surprised by her response. Life doesn't always care what people deserve. Sophia stared at him silently for a moment. There was something deeply attractive about the way he spoke. Not arrogant, not bitter, just real. Most people around Sophia either worshipped wealth or envied it. Daniel simply understood struggle, and somehow that made him different from everyone else she knew. Sophia picked up her fork slowly. So after all that, she asked gently. You still kept going. Daniel looked directly into her eyes. What choice did I have? The simplicity of the answer hit her unexpectedly hard. Sophia realized then how disconnected her world had become from ordinary people's realities. She worried about billionaire investments. Daniel worried about survival. Yet, somehow he still carried warmth in him, still smiled, still hoped. Sophia found herself admiring that quietly. Daniel noticed her staring. What? Sophia blinked lightly. Nothing. You were analyzing me. I analyze everyone. Daniel laughed softly. That sounds terrifying. It should. They both smiled. For the next hour, conversation flowed surprisingly easily between them. Daniel told funny stories about university life and disastrous repair jobs. Sophia laughed more during that lunch than she had in months. At one point, Daniel accidentally spilled water slightly while reaching for his glass. His face filled with embarrassment instantly. Sorry, Sophia burst into laughter. You're the first person who's ever spilled water in front of me without pretending it didn't happen. Daniel groaned. Please don't make this worse. You should see your face right now. Daniel shook his head while laughing, too. And in that moment, Sophia felt something unfamiliar. Peace. No pressure. No negotiations. No pretending, just genuine conversation. When lunch finally ended, Daniel hesitated slightly outside the restaurant. Thank you, he said sincerely. Sophia crossed her arms lightly. For lunch. For listening. The honesty in his voice caught her attention again. Sophia tilted her head slightly. You're not used to people listening to you. Daniel smiled, faintly. Not really. A strange sadness touched Sophia briefly. She understood that feeling more than he probably realized. Her entire life people listened to her power, not necessarily her. As they stood beside the car, Sophia suddenly asked, Do you still have your credentials? Daniel blinked. My documents, yes, at home. Bring them tomorrow. Daniel frowned slightly in confusion. Why? Sophia opened the car door calmly. Because Bennett Holdings might have a position for you. Daniel stared at her speechlessly. What? You heard me. His expression became stunned. You're serious? I don't joke about work. Daniel looked genuinely overwhelmed. Sophia could almost see hope fighting against disbelief inside him. You haven't even seen my qualifications yet. True. So why would you consider hiring me? Sophia paused briefly before answering. Because I think you're smarter than the opportunities life gave. You. Daniel looked completely caught off guard by that answer. For several seconds he said nothing. Then quietly, nobody said something like that to me in a very long time. Sophia's chest tightened unexpectedly. Before things could become too emotional, she straightened slightly. Don't make me regret this, Daniel. A slow smile spread across his face. I won't. Sophia nodded once before getting into the car. As she drove away, Daniel remained, standing there watching her disappear into traffic. For the first time in years, someone had looked at him and seen potential instead of failure. And inside her moving car, Sophia realized something equally dangerous. She was beginning to care what happened to him. The next morning, Daniel arrived at Bennett Holdings, nearly an hour early. He stood outside the towering glass building, adjusting the sleeves of his only good shirt while staring up at the company logo high above the entrance. Bennett Holdings. Just weeks ago, he had only heard about the company through television interviews and newspaper articles. Now he was standing outside because the billionaire CEO herself had personally asked him to return. Even thinking about it still felt unreal. Daniel inhaled slowly and walked inside. The elegant lobby immediately made him feel underdressed again. Employees in expensive suits moved confidently across polished marble floors, while receptionists answered calls behind sleek white desks. Everything screamed wealth, power, success. Daniel tried not to look intimidated. A receptionist smiled politely. "Good morning, sir. Can I help you?" "Yes. Sophia Bennett asked me to bring my credentials." Recognition flashed instantly across the receptionist's face. Mr. Daniel. Miss Bennett informed us you'd be coming." Daniel blinked slightly. She informed them. The receptionist handed him a visitor pass. "The executive elevator will take you directly to the top floor." Daniel thanked her quietly before walking toward the elevator. Inside, his reflection stared back at him from the mirrored walls. For a moment, insecurity crept in. What was he even doing here? People like Sophia belonged to another world entirely. A world of billion-dollar meetings and luxury lifestyles, not roadside mechanics. Struggling to survive. The elevator doors opened smoothly onto the executive floor. Daniel stepped out nervously. Several employees glanced at him curiously. Then Clara, Sophia's assistant, approached with a warm smile. "Good morning, Miss. Bennett is expecting you." Daniel nodded politely. "Thank you." Clara led him toward Sophia's office before knocking softly. "Ma'am, Daniel is here." "Send him in." Daniel stepped inside slowly. Sophia sat behind her desk, wearing a fitted dark green suit that somehow made her look even more intimidating and beautiful at the same time. Morning sunlight poured through the large glass windows behind her, illuminating the office softly. For half a second, Daniel forgot how to breathe properly. Sophia looked up from her laptop and smiled faintly. "You came." Daniel held up a neat brown file. "You asked for my credentials." Sophia gestured toward the chair across from her. "Sit." Daniel obeyed quietly while she opened the file. The room became silent except for the soft sound of papers turning. Sophia's expression slowly changed as she reviewed his academic records. Excellent grades, engineering awards, research commendations. She looked genuinely impressed. "You graduated top of your class." Daniel rubbed the back of his neck awkwardly. "I studied a lot." Sophia looked back down at the documents again. "These recommendations are outstanding." Daniel gave a small shrug. They didn't help much. Sophia frowned slightly at that. It bothered her that someone clearly talented had been overlooked for so long. After reading through everything carefully, she closed the file and looked directly at him. "You should have been hired years ago." Daniel stared at her quietly. Sophia pressed a button on her office phone. Clara asked Human Resources to prepare an employment package for Daniel Admi. Daniel's eyes widened instantly. What? Sophia remained calm. "You're hired." Silence. Daniel honestly thought he misheard her. "Hired." As a junior operations engineer. Daniel blinked repeatedly. "You're serious?" Sophia raised an eyebrow slightly. "Do I look like I'm joking?" Daniel let out a stunned laugh and ran a hand over his face. For a second, he looked completely overwhelmed. "You have no idea what this means to me." Something about the emotion in his voice touched Sophia unexpectedly. She leaned back slightly. You earned it, Daniel. No, he said honestly. You gave me a chance. Their eyes held briefly, and Sophia suddenly became aware of how dangerously handsome he looked when emotional. She cleared her throat lightly. You start on Monday. Daniel smiled slowly. That smile nearly distracted her completely. Thank you, Sophia. Not Miss Bennet. Sophia. Strangely, she liked hearing him say her name. Over the next few weeks, Daniel adapted quickly at Bennett Holdings. To everyone's surprise, he turned out to be exceptionally good at his job. He learned fast, worked harder than everyone else, never complained. Even senior staff began praising him. Sophia noticed everything. During meetings, Daniel spoke thoughtfully and intelligently. At project sites, workers respected him because he treated them kindly instead of acting superior. One afternoon, Sophia stood quietly on a construction balcony, watching Daniel explain structural adjustments to a group of engineers. There was confidence in him now. Not arrogance. Confidence. Vanessa suddenly appeared beside her holding coffee. You're staring again. Sophia nearly rolled her eyes. I'm observing an employee. Hmm? Vanessa sipped her coffee dramatically. You observe him a lot. Sophia ignored her. Vanessa smirked knowingly. You like him, I barely know him. That's not denial. Sophia sighed tiredly. This conversation is exhausting. Vanessa laughed softly. Look at you, though. What you smile more lately. Sophia froze slightly. Was that true? Vanessa nudged her gently. You deserve happiness too, you know. Sophia looked back toward Daniel quietly. He was laughing with the workers about something. The sight warmed her unexpectedly. That evening, Sophia called Daniel into her office after work. He entered carrying documents. You wanted to see me. Sophia nodded toward the chair near her desk. Sit. Daniel sat carefully. Sophia closed the file she'd been reading. You handled today's inspection well. Thank you. The engineers were impressed. Daniel smiled slightly. I just did my job. That's rare these days. Daniel laughed softly. Sophia found herself smiling back automatically. There it was again. That strange comfort she felt around him. Daniel noticed the untouched food tray sitting nearby. You haven't eaten. Sophia glanced at the tray absent-mindedly. I forgot. Daniel stared at her in disbelief. How do people forget food? Sophia smirked faintly. How do people voluntarily repair engines in the sun? Fair point. For a moment they simply sat there smiling at each other. Then Daniel suddenly became serious. You work too hard. Sophia blinked slightly. Excuse me, I'm serious. She crossed her arms. Are you lecturing your boss? Yes. Sophia laughed unexpectedly. Daniel smiled. You barely sleep. You skip meals. You're always working. That's how companies succeed. Daniel shook his head gently. No, that's how people burn out. The concern in his voice caught her off guard. Most people cared about what Sophia provided. Very few cared about Sophia herself. You worry about me? She asked quietly. Before thinking, Daniel looked surprised by the question. Then softly, yes. Something shifted painfully inside her chest. Sophia quickly stood up and walked toward the windows overlooking the glowing city lights. Why did simple things from him affect her so much? She had spent years building walls around herself, yet Daniel somehow slipped through them effortlessly behind her. Daniel stood slowly too. You okay? Sophia nodded once, though she wasn't sure anymore. Yes, but even she could hear the uncertainty in her voice. Daniel stepped closer carefully. Not too close, just enough. You know, he said quietly. You don't always have to carry everything alone. Sophia stared out the window silently. Nobody had said words like that to her in years. People depended on her, needed her, expected things from her. But Daniel, he simply wanted her to breathe. Sophia finally turned toward him. You make me forget. Stress sometimes. Daniel smiled softly. You make me nervous all the time. She laughed. Good. No, seriously, you're terrifying. Sophia folded her arms playfully. And yet you keep talking to me against my better judgment. Their laughter filled the office warmly. Outside, the window's rain suddenly began falling softly across the city. Daniel glanced toward the storm. This weather again. Sophia smiled knowingly. Maybe rain likes introducing us. Daniel looked directly into her eyes. Then the air shifted instantly. The laughter faded slowly into silence. Sophia suddenly became very aware of how close he was standing. Her heartbeat quickened unexpectedly. Daniel noticed it too. You know, he said softly. Before my car broke down that day, I thought my life was going nowhere. Sophia swallowed lightly. And now Daniel's eyes never left hers. Now I look forward to waking up again. The honesty in his voice completely disarmed her. Sophia's walls weakened another inch. She looked away first. Dangerous. This was dangerous. Yet for the first time in years, she didn't want to run from the feeling. Over the following weeks, their connection deepened naturally. Lunches became routine. Late-night project discussions turned into personal conversations. Sophia learned Daniel loved old music, roadside food, and football. Daniel learned Sophia secretly loved cheesy romantic movies, but denied it aggressively. One Saturday evening, after finishing a project inspection, Daniel convinced Sophia to stop at a small roadside food stand. Instead of an expensive restaurant, Sophia stared at the plastic chairs skeptically. You seriously eat here? Daniel grinned. You're about to experience real happiness. 20 minutes later, Sophia sat laughing uncontrollably after accidentally eating food far spicier than expected. Daniel nearly choked from laughing at her expression. You're enjoying this too much. I've never seen a billionaire cry over pepper before. Sophia threw a napkin at him while laughing. People nearby glanced curiously at the elegant billionaire woman laughing openly in a place she normally would never visit. But for once, Sophia didn't care. And later that night, while driving home alone, she realized something undeniable. Somewhere, between rainy roads, lunch conversations, and stolen laughter, she was slowly falling in love with Daniel. By the third month of Daniel, working at Bennett Holdings, almost everyone in the company noticed the change in Sophia. The once cold and endlessly serious billionaire CEO smiled more often now. She no longer buried herself in work until midnight every single day. Sometimes employees even heard laughter coming from her office, something nearly impossible before Daniel entered her life. And unsurprisingly, people talked. Secretaries whispered during lunch breaks. Executives exchanged knowing glances during meetings. Even construction workers joked quietly whenever Daniel appeared beside Sophia during inspections. The boss is finally in love, one worker whispered one afternoon. And honestly, another replied, she looks happier. They were right. Sophia was happier. For the Kronet as an S for center, first time in years, life no longer felt like an endless cycle of responsibilities and pressure. Daniel brought something peaceful into her world. Something real. One Friday evening, Sophia sat in her office trying to focus on financial reports while Daniel reviewed project files nearby. Rain tapped softly against the windows outside. Sophia glanced toward him for the fifth time in 10 minutes. Daniel suddenly looked up. You know, staring at employees is technically workplace harassment. Sophia smirked slightly. You're becoming too confident, Daniel grinned. You created this monster. Sophia laughed quietly and closed her laptop. I'm tired. Daniel looked genuinely concerned immediately. You've barely rested this week. There's too much work. There will always be work. Sophia leaned back in her chair tiredly. You sound exactly like Vanessa. That means I'm right. Sophia rolled her eyes dramatically. Daniel stood and walked toward her desk slowly. Come with me somewhere. Sophia frowned slightly. Where? You'll see. I hate surprises. That's because you like controlling everything. Sophia narrowed her eyes. You're very brave for someone whose salary I approve. Daniel laughed. Exactly. You won't fire me because you like me too much. Sophia tried not to smile, failed completely. 30 minutes later, Daniel drove Sophia through the quieter parts of the city while old music played softly through the speakers. Sophia glanced at him curiously. You still haven't told me where we're going. You ask too many questions and you're suspiciously calm. Daniel only smiled. Eventually they arrived at a small hill overlooking the city lights. Sophia blinked in surprise. The place was simple but beautiful. The city glowed beneath the night sky, while cool wind brushed softly around them. Daniel stepped out first and opened her door dramatically. Your destination, Madam Billionaire. Sophia laughed as she stepped out. This is actually nice. I know. They sat together on the hood of the car overlooking the city silently for a while. For once, Sophia wasn't thinking about contracts or meetings. She was simply existing beside him. And strangely, that felt enough. Daniel glanced toward her quietly. You know what's funny? When I first saw you beside that broken car, I thought you looked terrifying. Sophia laughed. Terrifying. You were standing there in expensive clothes looking angry at the entire world. I was angry. I could tell. Sophia smiled softly. And now Daniel looked directly into her eyes. Now I think you're one of the loneliest people I've ever met. Her smile faded slightly. Not because she was offended, because he was right. Sophia looked away toward the city lights. Success gets lonely. Daniel nodded quietly. I figured. Sophia exhaled slowly. People think money solves everything, doesn't it? No. Her voice softened slightly. It just changes the kind of problems you have. Daniel listened carefully. Sophia rarely opened up emotionally. Even Vanessa struggled sometimes to get past her walls. But around Daniel, talking felt easier. When my father died, Sophia admitted quietly. Everyone expected me to save the company. Daniel remained silent beside her. I was only 23, she continued. Most investors thought I'd fail, but you didn't. No, she said softly. I became obsessed with proving myself. Daniel watched her carefully, and somewhere along the way, work became my entire life. A sad smile touched her lips. I stopped knowing who I was outside business. Daniel's expression softened. You know who I see? Sophia glanced at him. A woman who's exhausted from carrying everything alone. Her chest tightened unexpectedly. Daniel always seemed to say the exact things nobody else noticed. Sophia looked down quietly. You make me feel human again. The words escaped before she could stop them. Daniel stared at her for a moment, then gently. You were always human, Sophia. Something emotional moved painfully inside her chest. Before she could overthink it, Daniel slowly reached for her hand. Sophia looked down at their fingers touching. Warm, gentle, careful, not demanding, not possessive, just sincere. Sophia's heartbeat quickened. Daniel studied her face nervously. I've been trying not to say this too soon. Sophia swallowed lightly. Say what? Daniel smiled faintly. I think I'm falling in love with you. The world seemed to pause around them. The city lights blurred softly beneath the night sky while Sophia stared into his eyes. Fear rose inside her immediately. Love had once broken her badly after Michael left. She promised herself never to become emotionally vulnerable again, but Daniel had already become important to her long before she realized it. And deep down, she knew the truth. She was falling too. Sophia smiled softly. "You're in trouble then." Daniel blinked. "What?" "Because I think I'm falling for you too." Daniel laughed softly in disbelief. Then slowly, carefully, he cupped her face gently. Sophia's breath caught instantly. "Can I kiss you?" he whispered. The fact that he asked instead of assuming touched her more than he realized. Sophia nodded slowly. Daniel kissed her softly beneath the cool night breeze. And in that moment, the powerful billionaire who controlled entire industries forgot about everything except him. The following weeks felt almost magical. Sophia and Daniel officially became a couple, and the media lost their minds. Newspapers published headlines everywhere. Billionaire CEO falls for former mechanic. The unexpected romance of Sophia Bennett. Love across different worlds. Photographers constantly tried capturing them together. At first, Sophia hated the attention, but Daniel somehow made even chaos feel manageable. One evening, Sophia entered her penthouse carrying shopping bags while laughing at something Daniel said. Her housekeeper nearly dropped a tray in shock. She had never seen Sophia this relaxed before. Daniel looked around the luxurious penthouse, awkwardly. "I still can't believe you actually live here." Sophia smiled teasingly. "What you expected a cave, I expected less chandeliers." Sophia laughed loudly. Daniel walked slowly around the enormous living room. Floor-to-ceiling windows displayed breathtaking city views, while elegant furniture decorated the massive space beautifully. "It's beautiful," he admitted quietly. Then he looked at her. "But it feels empty." Sophia's smile softened slightly. "It used to be." Daniel walked closer. And now Sophia stared into his eyes for a moment. "Now it feels like home sometimes." Daniel kissed her forehead gently, and for the first time in years, Sophia truly meant those words, but not everyone felt comfortable with the relationship. Vanessa remained cautious. One afternoon, she sat across from Sophia inside her office with narrowed eyes. "I'm just saying be careful." Sophia sighed tiredly. "Why does everyone suddenly think Daniel is suspicious?" "Because this happened very fast." Sophia frowned. "People fall in love." "Yes," Vanessa replied carefully. "But you're Sophia Bennett. What's that supposed to mean?" "It means you're one of the richest women in the country." Sophia crossed her arms immediately. "You think he's using me?" Vanessa hesitated. "I don't know him enough yet." Sophia's expression hardened slightly. "I trust him." Vanessa looked unconvinced. "Sophia, no." Sophia interrupted quietly. "Daniel isn't like that." Vanessa sighed softly. "I hope you're right." That evening, Sophia found Daniel waiting for her outside the company building. The moment she saw him leaning casually beside his car, smiling at her, all her stress melted instantly. "How was your day?" he asked. "Terrible." Daniel opened the passenger door for her. "Then I prescribed food." Sophia laughed softly. "You think food solves everything?" "No," Daniel replied while starting the car. "You do." Sophia smiled and leaned back comfortably in her seat. And as the city lights blurred outside the windows, one dangerous thought settled fully into her heart. She could actually imagine spending forever with him. 3 months after Daniel confessed his love to Sophia beneath the city lights, he proposed. And Sophia Bennett, the powerful billionaire, who once claimed she had no time for love, said yes without hesitation. The proposal happened quietly on a rainy evening inside the same hilltop spot where they first admitted their feelings for each other. Daniel had decorated the area with candles and simple white flowers. Nothing extravagant, nothing overly luxurious, just intimate real. Sophia stood speechless as Daniel knelt before her holding a diamond ring that sparkled beneath the soft lights surrounding them. His hands trembled slightly, which somehow made the moment even more beautiful. "You changed my life," Daniel said, softly. Sophia felt tears gathering instantly. "Before you every day felt like survival. But now I actually look forward to the future." His eyes locked onto hers. "I know I'm not the kind of man people imagined you'd end up with." Sophia shook her head immediately. "You're exactly kind of man I want." Emotion flashed across Daniel's face. Then quietly, carefully, he asked, "Sophia Bennett, will you marry me?" She laughed through her tears. "Yes." Daniel slipped the ring onto her finger before pulling her into his arms tightly. And for the first time in years, Sophia felt completely certain about something beyond business. She was in love deeply, completely. The announcement exploded across social media the next morning. News stations discussed it endlessly. The billionaire queen is getting married. From roadside mechanic to future husband of a billionaire CEO. Perhaps the greatest love story of the year. The public adored them together. People called their relationship inspiring romantic proof that true love could cross social boundaries. But behind the glamorous headlines, wedding preparations quickly became chaotic. Sophia wanted everything perfect, and unfortunately for everyone around her, Sophia Bennett's version of perfection was terrifyingly detailed. "No, the flowers are wrong." The wedding planner nearly cried. "Ma'am, these are imported roses from Paris. They're still the wrong shade." Vanessa sat nearby watching the exhausted wedding staff scramble nervously around Sophia's penthouse. "You're scaring people again," Vanessa whispered. Sophia ignored her while reviewing another stack of wedding designs. "The lighting arrangement needs adjustment too." The planner looked like he might faint. Vanessa burst into laughter. "I genuinely don't know how your employees survive." Sophia glanced up calmly. "By doing their jobs correctly." Vanessa rolled her eyes dramatically. "You're becoming a bridezilla." "I'm becoming organized." "No," Vanessa corrected. "You're becoming terrifying in white." Sophia laughed softly, despite herself. Deep down, she knew she was obsessing too much. But this wedding meant more to her than anyone realized. It wasn't just about love. It was about trust, about finally believing happiness could last. And after years of loneliness, Sophia desperately wanted this future to be real. Meanwhile, Daniel adapted surprisingly quickly to Sophia's world. At first, he had seemed uncomfortable attending luxury events and business gatherings beside her. But slowly confidence replaced insecurity. Sophia noticed how naturally charming he could be around people. He knew how to make others laugh, how to make conversations feel effortless. Even powerful investors seemed to like him. One evening during a charity gala, Sophia stood beside Daniel while reporters photographed them endlessly. "You know," Daniel whispered playfully, "I still feel weird every time cameras follow us." Sophia smiled slightly. "You get used to it eventually." "I'm not sure I want to." Sophia glanced at him curiously. Why? Daniel shrugged. "Because fame feels fake." Sophia studied him quietly. That answer oddly comforted her. Most people chased attention desperately. Daniel seemed uninterested in it. At least that was what she believed. Across the ballroom, Vanessa watched them carefully while sipping champagne. Something still bothered her. She couldn't explain it properly. Daniel treated Sophia well. He looked loving, attentive, respectful. Yet sometimes something about him felt slightly rehearsed, too polished, too perfect. Later that evening, Vanessa cornered Sophia privately near the balcony. "You trust him completely?" she asked quietly. Sophia sighed immediately. "We've had this conversation already." "I know. Then why keep asking?" Vanessa hesitated carefully. "I just don't want you getting hurt." Sophia's expression softened slightly. "I appreciate that. Then at least promise me you're being careful." Sophia looked toward Daniel across the ballroom. He was laughing with several business executives. "He loves me, Vanessa." Vanessa followed her gaze silently. "I hope so." Sophia frowned slightly. "You really don't like him." "That's not true." Vanessa replied honestly. "I just think everything happened very fast." Sophia smiled faintly. "Maybe when something is real, it doesn't need years." Vanessa didn't respond because honestly she wasn't sure anymore whether her concern came from intuition or fear of seeing her best friend heartbroken again. Weeks passed quickly as wedding preparations intensified. Sophia eventually moved Daniel fully into her penthouse. At first, sharing her space with someone felt strange. She had spent years alone, years waking up to silence, working through midnight alone, eating meals alone. Now suddenly there was laughter in the apartment, music in the mornings, conversations at midnight. Daniel transformed the cold luxury penthouse into something warmer, something alive. One Sunday morning, Sophia woke unusually late and walked into the kitchen wearing silk pajamas. She stopped immediately in surprise. Daniel stood there attempting to cook breakfast. Attempting being the important word. Smoke filled part of the kitchen while something burned violently in a pan. Sophia burst into laughter. "Oh my God." Daniel looked offended. "I was trying to surprise you with a fire. It's called experimental cooking." Sophia laughed harder while taking the spatula from him. "You're banned from touching my kitchen." Daniel wrapped his arms around her waist from behind. "Harsh. You almost destroyed a penthouse worth millions." Daniel kissed her cheek lightly. "But you're smiling." Sophia froze slightly because he was right. She was smiling. Constantly lately. Daniel rested his chin on her shoulder. "You know I love you, right?" Sophia turned slightly toward him. "I know." And she truly believed it. That was the dangerous part. As the wedding date approached, excitement grew everywhere. Luxury designers delivered custom outfits. Celebrities confirmed attendance. Media companies begged for exclusive coverage. Sophia spared absolutely no expense. The wedding venue alone looked like something from a royal ceremony. Crystal chandeliers, massive floral arrangements, golden decorations, live orchestra performances. Everything was breathtaking. One afternoon, Sophia stood inside the grand venue overseeing final preparations. Daniel walked in wearing a fitted black suit for measurements. Sophia's breath caught slightly seeing him. Daniel grinned immediately. "Why are you looking at me like that?" Sophia smirked softly. "You clean up nicely." Daniel walked closer teasingly. "So do you." Sophia adjusted his tie gently while smiling. In moments like this, everything felt perfect. Too perfect. Later that night, Daniel attended his bachelor celebration at an upscale lounge with several friends and coworkers. Meanwhile, Sophia remained at home finalizing wedding details with Vanessa. "You should relax," Vanessa said eventually. "I can't, Sophia. There are still seating arrangements to confirm." Vanessa grabbed the tablet from her hands dramatically. "Enough," Sophia sighed. "I just want everything perfect." Vanessa's expression softened slightly. "You deserve happiness." Sophia smiled quietly. "I think I finally found it." Across the city, meanwhile, loud music filled the private lounge where Daniel celebrated with his groomsmen. Alcohol flowed freely. Laughter echoed around the room. One of Daniel's friends raised a glass. To the luckiest man alive. Everyone cheered loudly. Another man laughed. Seriously, bro, you won the lottery. Daniel smirked arrogantly while sipping expensive champagne. You have no idea. His friends laughed knowingly. One leaned closer. So what's the plan after the wedding? Daniel's expression changed subtly. The warmth disappeared briefly from his face. Then slowly, he smiled. A cold smile. Simple, he said casually. I'll milk her fortune dry, then disappear. The men exploded into shocked laughter. Another groomsman nearly choked on his drink. You're joking, Daniel shrugged carelessly. Do I look stupid enough to stay controlled by one woman forever? One friend whistled lowly. That's evil. That's smart, Daniel corrected. The men continued laughing loudly. None of them noticed the lounge door opening quietly behind them. None of them realized Sophia had just arrived after deciding to surprise Daniel personally. She stood frozen outside the partially opened private room. Every word hit her like a knife. Her heartbeat stopped, then shattered completely. Inside the room, Daniel kept talking while laughing carelessly with his friends, completely unaware that the woman who loved him stood only feet away listening to her entire world collapse. Sophia stood frozen outside the private lounge room while laughter echoed from inside. Her entire body felt numb. For a second she honestly wondered if she had imagined the words. Maybe she misunderstood. Maybe Daniel was joking. Maybe. I swear. Daniel continued inside while laughing. Once the wedding is done, everything she owns becomes easier to access. More laughter erupted. One of the men whistled. You really fooled her. Daniel smirked arrogantly. She practically handed me the perfect life herself. Sophia felt her chest tighten, painfully. The room around her suddenly seemed too small, too hot, too loud. She pressed one trembling hand against the wall beside her as her breathing became uneven. Every memory replayed violently in her mind. The rainy roadside where they met, the rooftop conversations, the way he looked at her and said he loved her. The nights she trusted him enough to let down every wall she built around herself. Had all of it been fake inside? The room, Daniel laughed again. You should see how much she trusts me now. One of his friends frowned slightly. Still, though, Sophia actually seems like a good woman. Daniel shrugged carelessly. Good women are easier to manipulate. That sentence shattered whatever hope Sophia still held. Tears filled her eyes instantly, not soft, emotional tears. Broken tears. The kind that came when something inside a person died unexpectedly. She stepped backward, quietly before anyone noticed her standing there. Her expensive heels suddenly felt impossible to walk in. The hallway blurred around her. Then suddenly, Vanessa. Sophia turned sharply. Vanessa's smile disappeared instantly when she saw her face. Oh my God. Sophia looked completely destroyed. What happened? Vanessa whispered urgently. Sophia tried speaking. No words came out. Vanessa grabbed her hands immediately. Sophia, talked to me. Finally, painfully, Sophia whispered. He never loved me. Vanessa froze. The tears running down Sophia's face terrified her more than anything else could have, because Sophia almost never cried. Not when her father died. Not when investors tried destroying her company. Not even when Michael left years ago. But now she looked shattered. Vanessa guided her carefully farther down the hallway away from the lounge. What happened? She asked again softly. Sophia swallowed. Painfully. I heard him. Vanessa frowned. He said he planned to take my money and leave. The words nearly broke her all over again. Vanessa's face darkened instantly. What? Sophia laughed bitterly through tears. He never loved me. I was just useful. Vanessa immediately wrapped her arms around her tightly. For several moments, Sophia simply cried silently against her shoulder. Not loudly, not dramatically, just quietly broken. Vanessa held her carefully while rage slowly built inside her own chest, too. "That bastard," she whispered furiously. Sophia pulled away eventually and wiped her face shakily. "I feel stupid." "No." Sophia laughed bitterly again. "Vanessa, everyone warned me. That doesn't make this your fault. I trusted him because you loved him." Sophia looked away painfully. That word hurt now. Love. What a cruel joke. Vanessa studied her carefully. "What do you want to do?" Sophia remained silent for several seconds. The old Sophia would have disappeared. Quietly handled things privately. Pretended everything was fine. But this wasn't just heartbreak. This was humiliation, betrayal. Daniel didn't merely lie to her. He mocked her love, used her trust, made her look foolish. Slowly, Sophia's tears stopped. Something colder replaced them. Something dangerous. She straightened slightly and wiped the remaining tears from her face completely. Vanessa noticed the shift instantly. Sophia, her voice became calm. Too calm. "When is the wedding rehearsal tomorrow?" Vanessa blinked slightly. 60 inches the evening. Sophia nodded once. "And the actual ceremony starts Saturday at noon." "Yes." A slow expression formed on Sophia's face. Not sadness, not fear. Control. The same terrifying composure that once built a $1 billion empire from nothing. Vanessa suddenly understood. "Oh no." Sophia looked toward the distant lounge, where Daniel still laughed with his friends completely unaware. "He wants a performance," she said quietly. Vanessa almost felt sorry for Daniel then. Almost. Sophia's eyes hardened. "I'll give him one." The next morning, news stations continued celebrating the upcoming billionaire wedding, completely unaware of the disaster already unfolding behind the scenes. Inside her penthouse, Sophia sat silently near the massive windows overlooking the city, while untouched coffee rested beside her. She hadn't slept, not even for a minute. Every time she closed her eyes, she heard Daniel's voice again. "Good women are easier to manipulate." Her stomach twisted painfully. How many moments had been fake? How many kisses? How many promises? Sophia felt sick thinking about it. Vanessa entered quietly carrying breakfast. "You need to eat something." "I'm not hungry." Vanessa placed the tray down anyway. Sophia stared blankly ahead. He sounded so genuine. Vanessa sat beside her carefully. Manipulative people usually do. Sophia closed her eyes briefly. "I let him into my home." Her voice cracked slightly. "My life." Vanessa's expression softened sadly. "You loved him." Sophia laughed bitterly. "I built an empire worth billions, but somehow couldn't tell a man was using me." "Stop blaming yourself." "But I should have seen it." Vanessa shook her head firmly. "No, he should have been a decent human being." Silence settled between them. Then slowly Sophia spoke again. "I'm still going to the wedding." Vanessa stared at her. What Sophia's expression remained cold. "Now, the guests are already arriving from different countries. The media coverage is scheduled. Everything is prepared. You can cancel." "Oh, I will." A dangerous calm entered her voice, but not before Daniel learns exactly what happens when someone humiliates Sophia. "Bennett." Vanessa blinked slowly, and suddenly I'm scared for him. For the first time since the betrayal, Sophia smiled slightly. It wasn't a happy smile. It was the smile of a woman reclaiming power. Meanwhile, Daniel woke the next morning completely unaware that Sophia knew the truth. He stretched comfortably inside the penthouse guest room while checking messages on his phone. Several friends from the bachelor party joked in their group chat. "You really deserve an award for acting." Daniel smirked slightly. Then another message appeared. Just make sure she never finds out. Daniel chuckled softly to himself. Sophia was far too trusting. That was the funny thing about powerful people. Sometimes they assumed money made them untouchable, but emotional loneliness made them vulnerable. And Sophia had been lonely long before he arrived. Daniel dressed casually before walking toward the kitchen expecting to find Sophia there. Instead, he found silence. The penthouse felt strangely cold. A housekeeper approached carefully. "Good morning, sir." "Morning. Where's Sophia?" "She left early for meetings." Daniel frowned slightly. That was unusual. Sophia normally informed him whenever she had a busy schedule. Still, he ignored the strange feeling in his chest. "She stressed about the wedding?" he asked casually. The housekeeper smiled politely. "Perhaps." Daniel nodded distractedly before checking his phone again. He had no idea Sophia was currently sitting inside Bennett Holdings headquarters reviewing legal documents with her lawyers. Every property transfer agreement connected to the marriage, she instructed coldly. The lawyer looked confused. "Ma'am, I want every loophole closed immediately." Vanessa watched quietly nearby. Sophia's transformation over the last 12 hours felt terrifying. The emotional woman, crying in the hallway, was gone. Now only the billionaire remained sharp, controlled, merciless. The lawyer adjusted his glasses nervously. "Is there a problem?" Sophia looked up slowly. "Yes." Her voice was ice. "I'm about to expose a fraud, pretending to be my fiancé." By evening, the wedding rehearsal began at the grand luxury venue. Workers rushed everywhere finalizing decorations, while guests admired the breathtaking setup. Daniel arrived smiling confidently in an expensive tailored suit. People congratulated him constantly. "You're a lucky man." Daniel smiled politely. "I know." Then he noticed Sophia across the ballroom. She looked stunning in a fitted white rehearsal dress. Elegant, powerful, untouchable, but something felt different immediately. Coldness. Sophia smiled politely at him, but her eyes held nothing. Daniel frowned slightly. "Hey," he said while approaching her. "You okay?" Sophia stared at him calmly. "Perfect." Something about her tone unsettled him slightly. Still, he ignored the feeling. After all, there was no way she could possibly know the truth. Or so he thought. The morning of the wedding arrived bright and beautiful. Sunlight poured across the massive luxury estate where the ceremony would take place while workers rushed around making final adjustments to decorations. Everything looked perfect. White roses lined the grand walkway, leading toward an elegant floral altar beneath crystal chandeliers. Luxury cars filled the entrance as celebrities, politicians, business tycoons, and media personalities arrived one after another dressed in expensive designer outfits. Reporters stood outside excitedly. This is being called the wedding of the year. Billionaire CEO Sophia Bennett is finally getting married today. Guests from across the world have arrived. Inside the bridal suite, makeup artists and stylists moved carefully around Sophia. But unlike every excited bride they had worked with before, Sophia sat completely emotionless. Cold, calm, dangerously calm. Vanessa watched her quietly from nearby. "You don't have to go through with the public humiliation part," she said softly. Sophia stared at her reflection in the mirror. "Oh, I absolutely do." Her voice carried frightening composure. The wedding dress she wore was breathtaking. Elegant white, satin hugged her figure perfectly, while delicate diamonds sparkled across the fabric subtly. She looked like royalty, yet her eyes held no joy at all. Only betrayal, only pain. One stylist smiled nervously. "You look beautiful, ma'am." Sophia smiled politely. "Thank you." The woman quickly looked away again. Even strangers could feel the tension surrounding her. Meanwhile, inside another luxurious suite, Daniel adjusted his black tuxedo confidently while his groomsmen joked around him. "You really made it." One friend laughed. Daniel smirked proudly. "Not bad for a roadside mechanic." Another groomsman chuckled. "After today, your life changes forever." Daniel poured himself champagne calmly. "It already has." He looked completely relaxed, completely certain and completely unaware that his entire world was about to collapse publicly. One of his friends suddenly lowered his voice slightly. "You sure she didn't suspect anything after the bachelor party?" Daniel scoffed confidently. "She's too blinded by love." The men laughed quietly. Daniel straightened his suit in the mirror again. Sophia trusted him completely. Or at least that's what he still believed. Outside, the ceremony began. The orchestra played softly while guests took their seats beneath the massive decorated pavilion. Luxury cameras flashed constantly. Whispers spread excitedly everywhere. "She's stunning. I heard the wedding cost billions. They look perfect together." Vanessa sat near the front beside several executives from Bennett Holdings. But unlike everyone else there, she knew this wedding wasn't happening. And honestly, part of her almost pitied Daniel. Almost. The officiant took position near the altar while Daniel walked forward confidently. The crowd applauded warmly. Daniel smiled charmingly at guests while shaking hands politely. To everyone watching, he looked like the perfect groom. But Vanessa knew better now. Across the venue entrance, Sophia finally appeared. The entire crowd gasped instantly. She looked breathtaking, elegant, powerful, untouchable. Cameras flashed wildly as she slowly walked down the flowered aisle with graceful composure. Daniel smiled warmly the moment he saw her, but Sophia felt absolutely nothing looking at him now. No excitement, no love, no nervous happiness, only anger carefully hidden beneath calmness. As she walked closer, Daniel leaned slightly toward her and whispered softly, "You look amazing." Sophia smiled politely, but her eyes remained ice cold. Daniel frowned almost invisibly. Something still felt strange. The officiant began speaking while guests watched emotionally. "Today we gather to celebrate the union of Sophia Bennett and Daniel Adme." Sophia stood silently beside Daniel while his hand rested lightly against hers. The touch disgusted her now. Every promise he ever made suddenly felt fake in hindsight. The officiant continued, smiling warmly. "Love is built on trust, honesty, and commitment." Sophia almost laughed hearing those words. Trust, honesty. What irony. Daniel glanced toward her again. This time concern flickered briefly across his face. Her silence felt wrong. When the officiant finally reached the vow section, he smiled warmly. "If anyone has reason why these two should not be joined together in holy matrimony, speak now or forever hold your peace." Sophia slowly lifted her head, then calmly said, "I do." Silence crashed across the entire venue. The officiant blinked in confusion. Daniel turned sharply toward her. "Sophia." Guests exchanged confused whispers immediately. Sophia slowly stepped away from Daniel. Then she turned toward the audience gracefully. Cameras instantly focused on her. Vanessa exhaled quietly. "Here it comes." Sophia reached for the microphone beside the altar. Her expression remained perfectly controlled, but inside her heart still bled. "This wedding," she said calmly, "will not continue." Gasps exploded across the crowd. Daniel forced nervous laughter immediately. "Baby, what are you doing?" Sophia ignored him completely. Instead, she looked direct at the guests. "I invited all of you here today because I believed I was marrying a man who loved me." Her voice remained steady, but emotion burned beneath it. "I trusted him completely." Daniel stepped closer nervously. Sophia stopped. She turned slowly toward him then, and for the first time since discovering the truth. Daniel saw hatred in her eyes. Real hatred. His confidence cracked instantly. Sophia's voice became colder. But 2 nights ago, I overheard Daniel telling his friends how he planned to marry me, take my money, and disappear. Shock ripped through the crowd violently. People gasped openly. Whispers erupted everywhere. What is that true, oh my God? Daniel's face lost color immediately. Sophia, listened to me. No, she snapped sharply. The entire venue fell silent again. Sophia stepped closer toward him. You called me stupid. Daniel swallowed hard. You misunderstood. You said good women are easier to manipulate. The guests reacted loudly again. Several business executives stared at Daniel in disgust. Vanessa watched coldly from her seat. Daniel panicked visibly now. Sophia, I was drunk. That's your excuse, she interrupted. Daniel ran a hand through his hair desperately. Baby, I love you. Sophia laughed. A broken laugh, painful. You should have at least respected me enough to lie better. Daniel's breathing became uneven. People were staring at him now like he was garbage. And worse, cameras recorded everything. Sophia looked toward the audience again. I gave this man everything. Her voice finally cracked slightly. A career, a home, my trust, my heart. The vulnerability in her words made several guests emotional, and he saw me as nothing more than an opportunity. Daniel reached for her hand desperately. Sophia, please. She jerked away instantly like his touch burned her. Don't touch me. The coldness in her voice stunned him. Security guards quietly moved closer, already sensing disaster unfolding. Daniel lowered his voice urgently. We can talk privately. Sophia looked directly into his eyes. No, you wanted to embarrass me behind my back. She raised the microphone slightly. Now you can experience humiliation publicly too. The guests erupted into louder whispers again. Several reporters looked Sakon away from exploding with excitement. Daniel's carefully built image shattered in real time. One older woman in the audience shook her head disgustedly. What a wicked man. Another guest muttered. He used her. Daniel looked around desperately as judgment surrounded him from every direction. Then finally, for the first time, fear appeared fully on his face. Sophia turned toward security calmly. Remove him, Daniel stared at her in disbelief. What? You heard me, Sophia, please get him out of my sight. The guards approached immediately. Daniel tried resisting. Baby, listen to me. Sophia's expression never changed. You stopped being my problem the moment I heard the truth. The guards grabbed Daniel firmly while guests watched in stunned silence. His groomsmen looked horrified and deeply uncomfortable now. As security dragged him away, Daniel shouted desperately, Sophia, I love you. Sophia finally answered quietly. No, Daniel. Tears filled her eyes again despite her strength. You loved what I could give you. Then she turned away from him completely. The entire venue remained frozen in shock while Daniel disappeared from sight. The wedding of the year had just become the scandal of the decade. And standing alone beneath the shattered decorations and dying music, Sophia realized something heartbreaking. The dress, the flowers, the promises, none of it had been real. But at least now neither was the lie. The scandal spread across the country within hours. Every news station replayed the dramatic wedding disaster repeatedly. The billionaire bride exposes fiancé during wedding ceremony. Daniel Admi accused of planning to steal Sophia Bennett's fortune. Wedding of the year ends in public humiliation. Social media exploded with opinions. Some praised Sophia for exposing him publicly. Others mocked Daniel endlessly. Memes flooded the internet within a single night. But while the world treated the situation like entertainment, Sophia suffered quietly behind closed doors. 3 days after the canceled wedding, she still hadn't returned to work. That alone terrified her employees more than the scandal itself. Sophia Bennett never stopped working. Never. Yet now she barely left her bedroom. The massive penthouse that once felt warm because of Daniel suddenly felt painfully empty again. Every room reminded her of him. The kitchen where they laughed together, the balcony where they drank coffee at sunrise, the couch where he once held her while promising forever lies. Every memory now felt poisoned. Sophia sat near the bedroom windows, wearing oversized pajamas, while rain fell softly outside. Her untouched breakfast rested nearby. Vanessa entered quietly carrying fresh coffee. "You need to eat something." Sophia didn't respond immediately. After several seconds, she whispered, "I really loved him." Vanessa's heart broke hearing the pain in her voice. She sat beside her carefully. "I know." Sophia stared blankly ahead. "What's wrong with me?" Vanessa frowned. "What?" Sophia laughed bitterly. "How could I not see who he really was? Because manipulative people know exactly how to pretend." Sophia closed her eyes tightly. "I gave him everything." Vanessa reached for her hand gently. "And he abused your trust. That says something terrible about him. Not you." But Sophia wasn't listening anymore. Her thoughts replayed every moment repeatedly. Every smile, every kiss, every promise. Had any of it been real? Or was she simply another wealthy target Daniel carefully studied and manipulated? The thought made her physically sick. Meanwhile, outside the penthouse gates, reporters crowded constantly hoping for statements or photographs. Security worked overtime keeping media away. Sophia hated it. She hated the pity in headlines, the gossip online, the public embarrassment. But more than anything, she hated herself for believing in love again. 1 week later, Sophia finally forced herself back to Bennett Holdings. The moment she entered the building, employees became visibly nervous. Nobody knew how to behave around her now. Some pitied her, others feared her mood. Most avoided eye contact entirely. Sophia walked through the lobby coldly in a sharp black suit that matched the emotional walls she rebuilt around herself. The old Sophia had returned, maybe even colder than before. Inside meetings, she became ruthless again, demanding, sharp, emotionally distant. One executive accidentally presented incomplete figures during a conference review. Sophia's expression hardened instantly. "This is unacceptable." The room became tense immediately. "If this company starts operating carelessly because my personal life became public gossip," she said, "I'll start replacing people." Nobody spoke afterward. Vanessa watched silently nearby. She recognized this version of Sophia, the woman who hid pain beneath perfection, the woman who used work to avoid feeling anything. After the meeting ended, Vanessa followed Sophia back into her office. "You scared everyone in there." Sophia sat behind her desk without looking up. "Good. You can't keep punishing yourself like this." "I'm working." "You're hiding again." Sophia finally looked up sharply. "At least work doesn't betray me." The sadness beneath her anger hurt Vanessa deeply. She sighed softly. "Sophia, I don't want to talk about Daniel anymore." Vanessa nodded quietly, but she knew the heartbreak hadn't even begun healing yet. Over the following weeks, Sophia buried herself completely in business. Again. She worked impossible hours, skipped meals, constantly barely slept. The company expanded rapidly because of her obsessive focus. But emotionally, she was exhausted. One evening around midnight, Sophia remained alone inside her office, reviewing contracts, when she noticed rain pouring heavily outside. For a brief second, memories hit her unexpectedly. Rain. That was how she met Daniel. Sophia immediately shut her laptop harder than necessary. No, she refused to think about him anymore. Her phone suddenly buzzed. Unknown number. Sophia almost ignored it before finally answering coldly. Yes. Silence. Then, Sophia. Daniel. Her entire body froze instantly. Anger flooded her immediately afterward. How did you get this number? Please don't hang up. Sophia stood from her chair slowly. You have 5 seconds before I block you permanently. Daniel sounded exhausted. I just want to explain. There's nothing to explain. Sophia, please. She laughed bitterly. You used me. No, you planned to marry me for money. It wasn't like that at first. That sentence hit harder than she expected first, meaning eventually it became exactly that. Sophia's voice turned dangerously quiet. You know what hurts most. Daniel remained silent. I would have helped you anyway. Her eyes filled unexpectedly with tears again. You didn't have to pretend to love me. Daniel sounded emotional now, too. I did love you. Don't, Sophia. Don't insult me further by lying again. She ended the call immediately, before breaking down completely. Then she stood silently inside the dark office, while tears finally escaped again because the worst part wasn't anger anymore. It was grief. She missed the version of Daniel she thought existed, and that realization destroyed her. 2 months later, Vanessa practically forced Sophia to attend an international business conference in Lagos. You need to leave Abuja for once. Vanessa insisted. I have work. You always have work. Sophia sighed tiredly while adjusting her blazer. I hate conferences. No. Vanessa corrected. You hate being around people since the wedding. Sophia didn't argue because unfortunately it was true. Still, she eventually agreed to attend. The conference took place inside one of the country's most luxurious hotels filled with powerful CEOs, investors, and global business leaders. Sophia moved through the crowded ballroom politely but emotionally detached. People greeted her respectfully. Some offered awkward sympathy regarding the scandal. Sophia hated those conversations most. She smiled politely through them anyway. At one point, she escaped toward a quieter balcony overlooking the ocean. Cool evening wind brushed softly against her face. For the first time in weeks, she felt able to breathe properly. Then, suddenly Sophia. Her heartbeat stopped instantly. That voice. Slowly, she turned around and froze. Michael Anderson stood only a few feet away staring at her in shock. Older now, more mature, more confident, but unmistakably Michael. Sophia honestly forgot how to speak for several seconds. Michael. A slow smile spread across his face. I can't believe it's really you. Sophia stared at him almost helplessly. The years suddenly disappeared between them. Memories flooded back immediately. University libraries, late-night conversations, shared dreams beneath campus trees. The first man she ever truly loved. Michael stepped closer carefully. You look incredible. Sophia laughed softly in disbelief. So do you. And he did. The shy university student she once knew had transformed into a powerful, polished man, wearing an expensive tailored suit with effortless confidence. Sophia suddenly remembered hearing his name, recently in business magazines. Michael Anderson, CEO of one of Africa's fastest-growing technology companies, a billionaire now too. Michael smiled warmly. You disappeared after graduation. Sophia raised an eyebrow. You moved to London. You stopped answering calls. Sophia looked away briefly. You stopped making them. A brief awkward silence followed. Then, unexpectedly, they both laughed. And somehow, for the first time in months, Sophia felt something unfamiliar again. Not pain, not betrayal, comfort. Michael studied her gently. I heard about the wedding. Sophia's smile faded slightly. Of course he did. The entire country did. But unlike others, Michael didn't look curious or judgmental, only concerned. You okay? He asked softly. Such a simple question. Yet something about hearing it from him nearly broke her emotional control completely. Sophia looked toward the ocean quietly. I'm trying to be. Michael nodded slowly, then gently said, You don't have to pretend around me. And standing there beside her first love, beneath the evening sky, Sophia realized this was the first conversation in months that didn't feel heavy. Sophia couldn't stop thinking about Michael after the conference. Even after returning to Abuja, his voice lingered in her mind. You don't have to pretend around me. Such a simple sentence. Yet somehow it broke through emotional walls. She had rebuilt so carefully after Daniel's betrayal. For weeks, Sophia had moved through life like a machine again. Wake up, work meetings, sleep, repeat. But after seeing Michael, something shifted. Not dramatically, not instantly, just quietly, like sunlight slowly entering a dark room. 3 days after the conference, Sophia sat inside her office, reviewing documents, when her phone buzzed unexpectedly. A text message from Michael. Still terrible at replying to messages, Sophia stared at the screen before laughing softly to herself. That was exactly the kind of teasing message he would send years ago in university. For the first time in months, smiling felt natural again. She typed back, You disappeared to London for years. I think you lost the right to complain. His reply came immediately. So we're pretending you weren't equally stubborn. Sophia shook her head while smiling. Vanessa walked into the office at that exact moment and froze dramatically. Oh my God. Sophia quickly locked her phone. What, you're smiling at your phone? So Vanessa narrowed her eyes suspiciously. That's either dangerous or romantic. Sophia tried looking serious, failed completely. Vanessa gasped loudly. Wait, is this Michael? Sophia sighed. You're too nosy. Vanessa dropped into the chair across from her excitedly. I knew something happened at that conference. Sophia leaned back calmly. We just reconnected. MHM, we talked. MHM. Sophia rolled her eyes. You're annoying. Vanessa grinned. But am I wrong? Sophia didn't answer, because honestly she wasn't sure what this was yet. All she knew was that talking to Michael felt easy, safe, and after everything with Daniel's safety suddenly mattered more than excitement. Over the next few weeks, Sophia and Michael spoke constantly. Phone calls became daily. Messages stretched late into the night, and slowly, the awkwardness caused by years apart disappeared. One evening, Michael called while Sophia sat alone in her penthouse eating dinner. Well, this feels strange, he teased. Sophia smiled softly. What does you eating actual food at a normal hour? Sophia laughed quietly. You remember that. You used to survive on coffee and stress. Some things never change. Michael's voice softened slightly. Actually, I think some things did. Sophia grew quiet. What do you mean? You sound softer now. The words surprised her. Sophia walked toward the balcony slowly, while holding the phone against her ear. Life happened. So did heartbreak. She closed her eyes briefly. Michael always had a way of understanding her without needing explanations. I'm sorry about what happened, he said gently. Sophia leaned against the balcony railing quietly. You know what's embarrassing? What I'm one of the smartest business women in the country. Michael chuckled softly. And I still got manipulated like an idiot. His voice became serious immediately. No, Sophia frowned slightly. No, being betrayed doesn't make you foolish. His words settled deeply inside her chest. Michael continued quietly. It just means you loved someone sincerely. Sophia stared silently at the city lights below. Daniel never understood how much betrayal damaged her trust, but somehow Michael did, without judgment, without pity, just understanding. That comforted her more than she expected. A week later, Michael flew to Abuja for business meetings, but Sophia secretly knew he came mostly to see her. They agreed to have dinner together at a quiet rooftop restaurant overlooking the city. When Sophia arrived, Michael stood immediately, and for a brief moment her breath caught. He looked even more attractive than she remembered, confident, elegant, mature, but still carrying the same warm eyes she once loved years ago. Michael smiled slowly. "You're late," Sophia smirked slightly. "You're still dramatic." He laughed softly before pulling out her chair for her. The evening air felt calm around them while soft music played nearby. Unlike her relationship with Daniel, nothing about being with Michael felt rushed. There was no performance between them, no trying to impress each other, just familiarity, history, comfort. After ordering dinner, Michael leaned back slightly while studying her carefully. "What?" Sophia asked. "You really became extraordinary." Sophia looked away shyly. "You used to say that in university too, because I knew it." Sophia laughed softly. "You had ridiculous faith in me." Michael smiled gently. "No, I just saw you clearly." The sincerity in his voice made her heart ache unexpectedly. Daniel used charm to win her. Michael used honesty. There was a difference, a very big difference. As dinner continued, they spoke about everything they missed during the years apart. Michael told her about building his technology company from almost nothing overseas. The failures, the pressure, the loneliness. Sophia listened carefully. "You really built all that by yourself?" Michael shrugged lightly. "Took years." Then he smiled at her softly. "I learned persistence from you, actually." Sophia blinked slightly. "What?" "You always refused to quit, even in university." A warm feeling spread quietly through her chest. Most people admired her success. Michael remembered who she was before the success. That mattered more than she expected. At one point during dinner, Michael suddenly asked, "Why didn't we fight harder for us?" Sophia's smile faded slightly. The question lingered heavily between them. Finally, she answered honestly, "I think we were young." Michael nodded slowly and scared. Sophia looked at him carefully. "You were chasing your dreams." "So were you." A sad smile touched his lips. "Maybe we thought love would wait for us forever." Sophia looked away toward the glowing city lights. Back then they had loved each other deeply, but ambition, distance, and pride slowly destroyed what they had. And now, years later, life somehow brought them back together again. Michael's voice interrupted her thoughts gently. "You know what's funny? What, I tried dating other women after you." Sophia raised an eyebrow. "Only tried." Michael laughed. "None of them felt right." Her heartbeat quickened unexpectedly. Michael's expression softened. "They weren't you." Silence settled quietly between them. Not awkward, just emotional. Sophia suddenly realized something frightening. She felt more emotionally seen in these few weeks with Michael than she ever truly felt with Daniel. And that realization hurt because it exposed how much of her relationship with Daniel had been illusion. Michael reached across the table carefully. "You okay?" Sophia looked down briefly before nodding. "Yeah," but tears unexpectedly filled her eyes. "Anyway," Michael frowned immediately. "Sophia." She laughed softly while wiping her eyes. "I'm sorry. I think I'm just tired." "No," Michael said, gently. You're healing." The kindness in his voice nearly broke her completely. Michael squeezed her hand softly. "You don't always have to be strong." That sentence destroyed the last emotional wall she still held around him. Sophia looked at him quietly. "You make everything feel peaceful." Michael smiled sadly. "You used to do the same for me." After dinner, they walked slowly through the rooftop garden beneath soft glowing lights. Cool wind brushed against Sophia's hair while Michael walked beside her comfortably. For the first time in months, she didn't feel emotionally exhausted. She felt calm, alive again. As they reached the parking area, Michael suddenly stopped walking. Sophia turned toward him curiously. "What?" Michael hesitated briefly, then softly, "Can I tell you something honestly?" Sophia nodded. "When I heard about your wedding scandal," he admitted quietly, "I hated myself a little." Sophia frowned slightly. "Why?" "Because part of me kept wondering." He paused. "What if I never left?" Her heart tightened painfully. Michael looked directly into her eyes. "What if you were always supposed to end up with me?" The air between them shifted instantly. Sophia's breath caught slightly, not because the words were dramatic, but because deep down a part of her had wondered the same thing too. Michael stepped closer carefully, not demanding, not forceful, just close enough for her to feel his warmth. "You don't have to answer that now," he said gently. Sophia stared into his eyes quietly. Then, for the first time in a very long while, she allowed herself to hope again. Sophia tried to fight it at first, not her feelings for Michael. Those were impossible to ignore. What she fought was the fear. After everything Daniel did, love no longer felt safe to her. Even happiness made her nervous now. Every time Michael looked at her too lovingly, a small voice inside her whispered, "What if this is another lie?" But Michael was patient. He never pressured her, never rushed her emotions, never demanded trust she wasn't ready to give. Instead, he simply stayed. And somehow, that healed her more than grand romantic gestures ever could. Over the next several months, Michael became a steady part of Sophia's life again. Morning phone calls turned into breakfast dates. Business meetings became opportunities to spend time together. Soon Michael started flying between Lagos and Abuja so frequently that Vanessa joked he practically lived there. One evening, Sophia sat inside her office finishing reports, while Michael relaxed on the couch nearby reading through a presentation on his tablet. The atmosphere felt peaceful, comfortable. Sophia glanced up from her laptop quietly. "You know, you don't actually have to wait for me to finish work every night." Michael looked over calmly. "I know." "Then why do you?" He smiled slightly. "Because I like being near you." The simplicity of the answer warmed her chest immediately. Daniel used to overwhelm her with dramatic words and perfect performances. Michael did small things instead, consistent things, real things. Sophia slowly closed her laptop. "I'm done." Michael checked the time dramatically. Only 10 at night. Incredible progress. Sophia laughed softly. "You're annoying. You're overworked." He stood and walked toward her desk before extending his hand. "Come on. Where food?" Sophia smiled while taking his hand. With Michael, life didn't feel exhausting anymore. That was the difference. One Saturday morning, Sophia woke up, unusually relaxed. Sunlight poured softly through her penthouse windows while the smell of coffee drifted through the air. She walked into the kitchen wearing loose silk pajamas and stopped immediately. Michael stood there cooking breakfast while humming softly to himself. Sophia crossed her arms. "You cook too." Michael glanced over proudly. "Unlike Daniel, I won't burn your kitchen down." Sophia burst into laughter. Michael smiled warmly at the sound. God, he loved hearing her laugh. It had become one of his favorite sounds in the world. Sophia leaned against the counter while watching him. You know what's strange? What I used to think love had to feel dramatic to be real. Michael placed pancakes onto a plate carefully. And now Sophia smiled softly. Now I think peace is more romantic. Michael looked at her quietly for a moment, then gently. That's because you spent years surviving chaos. The truth in his words hit deeply. Sophia realized then that Michael never made her feel emotionally exhausted. There were no mind games, and no confusion, and no manipulation, just honesty. And after everything she survived, honesty felt beautiful. Later that afternoon, Sophia accompanied Michael to a charity event for underprivileged university students studying technology and engineering. As Michael spoke passionately with students about opportunities and education, Sophia watched him quietly from across the hall. Something about seeing him mentor young people touched her deeply. Unlike Daniel, who once saw struggling people as stepping stones, Michael genuinely wanted to help others rise. One nervous student approached him shrilly. "Sir, do you really think someone from a poor background can build something successful?" Michael smiled warmly. "I know they can." The student looked emotional. How Michael glanced briefly towards Sophia standing nearby. Because sometimes all a person needs is one chance and someone who believes in them. Sophia's chest tightened unexpectedly. She remembered University Michael clearly then. Even years ago, he always believed in people, always encouraged dreams, always loved sincerely, not performatively, not selfishly sincerely. Vanessa eventually walked over beside Sophia while watching Michael interact with the students. "He's different," she admitted quietly. Sophia smiled softly. "I know." Vanessa looked at her carefully. "You trust him?" Sophia thought about the question seriously, then realized something surprising. "Yes," she whispered, and this time the trust didn't scare her. A few weeks later, Michael invited Sophia on a surprise trip. "You're kidnapping me now," she teased while entering his private jet. Michael grinned. "Relax, billionaires call it traveling." Sophia laughed softly before sitting beside him. "Where are we going, you'll see." Hours later, the jet landed near the Jai city where they both attended university years ago. The moment Sophia realized where they were, she stared at Michael in disbelief. "You brought me here." Michael smiled gently. "I thought maybe we should revisit where everything started." A strange warmth spread through Sophia instantly. Their old university campus looked both familiar and different. New buildings stood beside old ones while students walked across pathways laughing and chatting exactly like they once did years ago. Sophia walked slowly beside Michael through the campus quietly. Memories surrounded them everywhere. "There," Michael said suddenly while pointing ahead. Sophia laughed immediately. "The old library. You practically lived there." "I was studying." "You were avoiding social interaction." Sophia smirked. "Some things never change." Michael chuckled softly. As they continued walking, several students recognized them. Whispers spread quickly. "Oh my God, that's Sophia Bennett and Michael Anderson." Some students nervously asked for pictures, while others simply stared in admiration. Sophia noticed how kindly Michael treated every single person who approached them. No arrogance and no superiority, just warmth. Eventually, they reached the large tree near the engineering department where they used to spend hours talking during university days. Sophia stopped walking slowly. "I can't believe this tree is still here." Michael smiled softly. "Some things survive time." They sat together beneath the tree quietly while cool evening wind moved gently around them. For several minutes neither spoke. They simply existed beside each other comfortably. Then Michael finally broke the silence. "You know, I used to imagine this exact moment." Sophia turned slightly toward him. What moment us finding each other again? Her heartbeat quickened softly. Michael looked ahead thoughtfully. When we broke up, I told myself it was temporary. Sophia listened quietly. I kept thinking maybe life would bring us back together when we were ready. He laughed softly. Sounds foolish now. No, Sophia whispered gently. It doesn't. Michael looked at her, then really looked at her, and Sophia suddenly saw the same love in his eyes that existed years ago, only deeper now, stronger, more certain. Michael exhaled slowly before standing up. Sophia frowned slightly in confusion. What are you doing? Instead of answering, Michael reached into his pocket. Sophia's breath caught instantly. No. Her heart began racing wildly as Michael slowly lowered himself onto one knee beneath the old university tree where they once dreamed about the future together. Students nearby immediately noticed and gasped loudly. Sophia stared at him speechlessly. Michael smiled nervously, and somehow, seeing a billionaire CEO nervous over her felt unbelievably touching. You know, he said softly, I fell in love with you before either of us had money. Tears filled Sophia's eyes immediately. You were ambitious, stubborn, brilliant, and completely obsessed with work. Even back then, Sophia laughed through tears. Michael's voice became gentler, and after all these years, none of that changed. He opened the small velvet ring box carefully. Inside sat a breathtaking diamond ring sparkling beneath the evening light. But this time Michael whispered emotionally, I don't want distance, pride, or bad timing to separate us again. Sophia covered her mouth as tears rolled down her cheeks. Michael looked directly into her eyes. Sophia Bennett, will you marry me? Everything around her blurred. The students watching the evening sky, the world itself. All Sophia could see was him, the man who loved her before the empire, before the fame, before heartbreak, made her afraid of love, the man who never stopped seeing her heart beneath the billionaire image. Sophia nodded emotionally through tears. Yes. Michael's face broke into the happiest smile she had ever seen. Yes. He repeated in disbelief. Sophia laughed while crying. Yes. Tears exploded from the students nearby instantly. Michael slipped the ring onto her finger before standing and pulling her tightly into his arms. Sophia held on to him emotionally while tears continued falling. Not tears of heartbreak this time. Tears of peace. Real love had finally found her again, and this time it stayed. Sophia never thought she would wear another wedding dress again. After the humiliation with Daniel, she once believed that part of her life was permanently broken. For months after the canceled wedding, even the word marriage made her uncomfortable. But now, everything felt different because this time she wasn't walking toward uncertainty. She was walking toward peace. The morning of Sophia and Michael's wedding arrived calm and beautiful. Soft golden sunlight poured through the massive windows of Sophia's penthouse while stylists and makeup artists moved carefully around the room preparing her. Unlike her first wedding morning, the atmosphere felt light, warm, happy, no tension and no fear, no pretending. Vanessa stood nearby watching Sophia smile softly at her reflection. And honestly, she almost cried immediately. You know, Vanessa said emotionally, this is the first time I've ever seen you look relaxed on your wedding day. Sophia laughed quietly. I was terrifying last time, wasn't I? Terrifying, Vanessa repeated dramatically. You looked one flower arrangement away from committing murder. Sophia burst into genuine laughter. The sound filled the room warmly. Vanessa smiled softly afterward. There she is. Sophia looked at her curiously. What, the real you? For a moment emotion flickered across Sophia's face because Vanessa had witnessed everything. The lonely workaholic version of her, the heartbroken version, the betrayed version, and now finally the healed version. Sophia looked down at the engagement ring on her finger and smiled softly. I'm not scared this time. Vanessa's eyes softened. That's because Michael loves you correctly. Those words settled deeply in Sophia's heart. Loves you correctly. Yes, that was exactly the difference. Michael never made love feel confusing. Never made her question her worth. Never treated her heart carelessly. Outside the wedding venue looked breathtaking. Unlike the extravagant display of luxury during her first failed wedding, the ceremony felt elegant but deeply personal. White flowers decorated the outdoor garden venue softly, while golden lights shimmered beautifully around the pathways. Family, close friends, business associates. The guest list was smaller, this time more intimate, more meaningful, and importantly, no media circus. Sophia wanted this wedding to belong to them, not headlines. Meanwhile, in another suite, Michael adjusted his tuxedo while staring at himself nervously in the mirror. One of his closest friends laughed loudly. You run a multi-billion-dollar company, but you're panicking over marriage. Michael smiled nervously. I'm not panicking. You fixed your tie 12 times. Michael sighed dramatically. I just want today to be perfect. His friend smirked. You're in love. Michael smiled softly at that, because it was true. He had loved Sophia for years. Even during the years, they spent apart, some part of him never truly let her go, and now life had somehow given him another chance, a chance he refused to waste. At the ceremony venue, guests slowly took their seats while soft instrumental music played beautifully in the background. Vanessa sat in the front row beside several executives from Bennett Holdings. This time, unlike before, she felt completely at peace because Michael looked at Sophia with genuine love. Not calculation, not ambition. Love. That difference mattered. As the ceremony began, Michael stood beneath the floral altar waiting nervously. Then the music shifted softly. Everyone turned toward the entrance. Sophia appeared, and for a second Michael genuinely forgot how to breathe. She looked breathtaking. Her elegant white gown flowed gracefully around her while soft diamonds sparkled subtly beneath the sunlight. But more beautiful than the dress itself was the happiness on her face. Real happiness, not forced, not anxious, real. Michael's eyes filled slightly with emotion watching her walk toward him. Sophia noticed immediately. She smiled through tears already threatening to fall. When she finally reached the altar, Michael whispered softly, "You're beautiful." Sophia laughed quietly. "You already said that this morning. I'll probably say it forever." She smiled even wider. The officiant began speaking warmly while guests listened emotionally. Today, we gather to celebrate not only love, but second chances. Sophia glanced at Michael quietly. Second chances. What a powerful thing. The officiant continued. Sometimes life separates people temporarily so they can grow into who they were always meant to become. Michael gently squeezed Sophia's hand, and suddenly every painful experience she survived made sense. The heartbreak, the betrayal, the loneliness, all of it somehow led her back here, back to him. When it came time for vows, Michael spoke first. He looked directly into Sophia's eyes with complete sincerity. Sophia, loving you has never been difficult. Emotion instantly filled her eyes. Michael smiled softly. Even when we were young and broke, I loved your mind, your strength, your determination. His voice became gentler. And now, after everything life has put us through, I still choose you. Sophia's tears slipped down quietly. Michael reached up, gently wiping one away with his thumb. You taught me that success means nothing if there's nobody to share life with. The guests watched emotionally. And I promise, Michael whispered, to never make you question whether you are loved again. Sophia completely broke down crying at that point. Not from sadness, but because those words healed parts of her heart still wounded from Daniel's betrayal. Michael loved her carefully, intentionally, honestly. When it was Sophia's turn, she took a shaky breath before speaking. I spent years believing I had to carry the world alone. Michael listened quietly while holding her hands. I became so focused on success that I forgot how to trust people with my heart. Her voice cracked slightly. Then life hurt me in ways I thought would make love impossible forever. Michael's eyes softened painfully. Sophia smiled through tears. But somehow you found me again. A few guests wiped tears quietly nearby. Sophia looked directly into his eyes. You loved me before the success, before the fame, before I became this version of myself. Michael smiled softly. And even after all these years, you still see me clearly. Sophia squeezed his hands gently. I promise to choose you every day for the rest of my life. The officiant smiled warmly afterward. By the power vested in me, I now pronounce you husband and wife. Michael kissed Sophia gently while guests erupted into applause and cheers around them. And in that moment, Sophia felt something she hadn't experienced in years: complete peace. The reception afterward felt joyful and alive. People laughed, danced, celebrated, but unlike her first wedding, nothing felt performative. Everything felt genuine. At one point during the reception, Vanessa pulled Sophia aside emotionally. You finally got your happy ending. Sophia looked across the ballroom where Michael laughed with guests nearby. Then she smiled softly. No. Vanessa frowned slightly. No. Sophia shook her head gently. This isn't the ending. She looked at Michael lovingly. It's the beginning of the life I was always supposed to have. Years later, Sophia and Michael became known as one of the most powerful couples in the business world. Together, they built companies, charities, scholarships, and opportunities for thousands of young people struggling like they once did. But beyond the wealth and influence, they built something more important: a home filled with laughter, trust, peace, love. Sophia still worked hard. That part of her never changed. But now she no longer carried life alone. And every once in a while, on quiet rainy evenings, she remembered the roadside where her car broke down years ago. First, she used to regret meeting Daniel entirely, but eventually she realized something important. Painful experiences sometimes redirect people toward where they truly belong. Daniel taught her how dangerous false love could be. But Michael taught her something even more valuable. Real love doesn't manipulate, doesn't confuse, doesn't disappear when things become difficult. Real love protects your heart instead of exploiting it. One rainy evening years later, Sophia stood beside the penthouse windows watching the city lights while Michael wrapped his arms gently around her from behind. "You're thinking too hard again," he teased softly. Sophia smiled while leaning comfortably against him, just remembering things. Michael kissed her forehead gently. "Good memories." Sophia looked up at him lovingly. "The best ones." And standing there beside the man who truly loved her, Sophia finally understood something beautiful. Success built her empire, but love finally made her feel at home. Thanks for watching. If you enjoy the story, please subscribe to this.